Hello and welcome to the first installment of my second set of dev blogs. Within this episode, I'll be exploring the TouchDesigner workspace, and I'll also be aiming to create a more tentacle-based audio visualizer. This will be reminiscent of my second installment in the first series when I used Unreal to make a line-based visualizer. So this will be kind of the same, but a greater evolution of that. So let's get started. So to start, I went about actually setting the parameters for the audio spectrum. This meant using the audio spectrum node, and then after that I used a series of other nodes, most specifically the trim node. And using this trim node, I could specify which area of the waveform I wanted to focus on for the basis of the movement within the effect. Next, I went about creating the framework for what would be responsible for the movement of the effect. So basically how the effect pulsates, its intensity, how fast it rotates, all of that would be determined in this next section that I'm building here. So at this point I went about building the nodes that were responsible for the material itself within the effect. For this I just wanted to use some tiny squares, and with this I then tied it back to the skeleton that I made in the last step, the part that was responsible for the movement of the effect. And with that you can see on the viewfinder on the right how those two work with each other and how the effect is actually starting to turn out. Here I begin building a small section that is responsible for the actual input values for the positioning and the overall movement of the effect. So here I use an analyze node to take the values from the audio spectrum, and it basically turns it from a spectrum all into numerical value. Then that way I can feed it through to the rest of the skeleton that I made on the second step, and that will basically give the effect the movement or the framework of the movement that I'm looking for. Now with the basis of the effect set up, it's now time to get into the more intricate aspects of the effect. Here I'm actually working on each individual cell of the effect. I was having issues with how sort of explosive or how much of a punch each cell had with the effect. As a result, I went about making each individual cell of the effect tiny. I made them very small, but the range at which each cell reacts to the music, I made their cap, the height of that, I made that extremely high. And as a result, when the bass comes through or the high aspects of the song come through, it makes the areas of the worm ripple even more. It makes it even more dramatic in the way that it shows the audio. Now with all other aspects of the effect complete, I went about adding and installing the post effects parts of the effect. For this I mainly used the bloom tool within TouchDesigner. I found this bloom tool to be honestly an extremely versatile tool that could probably be used within almost any piece of work that I make within this program. But yeah, this tool is basically responsible for how the color within this effect works, or most of the color anyway. I did tie a small amount of color to the original effect, but this bloom effect basically made it so that any aspect of the effect that wasn't responding to the audio in a crazy way had a sort of red hue to it, and as those individual cells expanded was when you could see the color sort of fade away, and that gave it aspects of highlight. So as the song became louder in certain aspects, those areas become more plump, I guess you'd say, and as a result it makes the whole effect even more reactive. So once I was happy with the post-productive effects that I had laid out, it was time to go about creating the first render for this effect.
You're telling me that I'm strong when I'm right. You're telling me that I'm wrong, but I know, now I understand. Now I see your wicked plan. I'm a junglist, 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 junglist.
So I'm quite happy with how my first render turned out with this effect. This was my first time using the TouchDesigner workspace, and honestly I'm really impressed with its capabilities, really. In terms of audio-visual experimentation, the software is great. I feel like with this effect has eclipsed much of the work that I've created in the differing Unreal and Blender softwares. However, after spending some time looking at this effect, I ended up coming back to the effect and tweaking it because I felt like there was more I could do with it. And as a result, I made a second render with a new audio track too, because I felt like the song that I currently use, as much as I like the song, it doesn't perform greatly for audio visualization. So I've gone about changing the song as well, and as a result it makes the audio visualizers visualize much better. Yeah. Yeah, so this is my final render for this effect. I'm much happier with how this secondary output came out. With the tweaks I made, each individual cell sort of merges together now and creates a rippled color effect with each of its pulses. As well as this, I changed the overall movement so it's much more sort of responsive compared to the first output. But yeah, this is my final render for this effect. Thank you for coming and watching my first installment of my second chapter in my dev blogs, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks.